Tae-jin stood at the observation window and watched the 6 creatures below. Each one was different. One had scales that shifted colors. Another had fur that looked like metal wire. A third had too many legs and eyes that glowed in the dark. They were all young, but they were already bigger than him. The station staff called them cubs, but Tae-jin thought they looked more like monsters from old Earth stories. The Galactic Conservation Station floated in orbit around a jungle moon. Tae-jin had arrived 3 days ago, fresh from Earth and excited to work with alien species. He was a xenobiologist, which meant he studied alien life. This was his dream job, but now, watching these creatures pace and snarl in their enclosure, he wondered if he had made a mistake. Hana came to stand beside him. She was the station commander, a calm woman with short black hair and tired eyes. She had been running this station for 2 years, and it showed in the way she moved and spoke. Everything about her was efficient and careful. They refused to eat again, Hana said. Her voice was flat, like she was reading a report. The feeding drones can't get close enough. The cubs attack anything that moves. Tae-jin watched one of the cubs, a creature with 6 legs and crystal-like teeth, snap at a floating drone. The drone backed away quickly. Food pellets scattered across the floor untouched. How long since they last ate? Tae-jin asked. 4 days for some, 6 for others. Hana crossed her arms. The council is losing patience. These cubs were rescued from destroyed habitats. We were supposed to rehabilitate them and return them to safe zones. But they're too aggressive. Too dangerous. They're scared, Tae-jin said quietly. Hana looked at him. Her expression didn't change, but Tae-jin saw something flicker in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or doubt. They're apex predators, she said. Even as juveniles, any one of them could kill a grown human in seconds. Fear doesn't make them safe. It makes them more dangerous. Tae-jin nodded, but he kept watching the cubs. He had worked with animals on Earth for years before joining the space program. Tigers, bears, wolves, all of them could kill too, but he had learned to read their body language to understand what they needed. These alien cubs moved differently, but some things were the same. The way they stayed in corners. The way they watched the doors. The tension in their bodies. What happens if they don't start eating? He asked. Hana was quiet for a moment. The council will authorize euthanasia. They can't release dangerous, starving predators into the wild, and they can't keep them here forever. Tae-jin felt something cold settle in his chest. How long do I have? I'm giving you 3 days, Hana said. Try whatever you think will work. But if there's no progress, we follow council protocols. She left him alone at the window. Tae-jin pressed his hand against the glass and watched the cubs. They had stopped moving now. All 6 of them sat in different parts of the enclosure, not looking at each other, not interacting. Just waiting. The next morning, Tae-jin requested access to the enclosure. The staff thought he was crazy. Dae-jung, the security officer, actually laughed when he heard the request. You want to go in there? Dae-jung was a big man with scars on his hands from his years working station security. With them? No protective suit, no weapons. Just observation at first, Tae-jin said. I'll stay near the door. I just need them to see me. Dae-jung looked at Hana. The commander studied Tae-jin's face for a long moment, then nodded. Keep the force field ready, she told Dae-jung. If anything goes wrong, pull him out immediately. Tae-jin entered through the secondary door. The enclosure was large, designed to hold multiple species. The walls were reinforced metal. The floor was covered in different materials, sand, grass, water. There were climbing structures and hiding spots. It should have been perfect for young predators. But it felt empty and cold. The cubs noticed him immediately. All 6 heads turned toward him. Tae-jin forced himself to breathe normally. He sat down near the door, cross-legged, hands in his lap. Then he just waited. The 6-legged cub with crystal teeth moved first. It crept forward, low to the ground, muscles tense. The other cubs watched. Tae-jin didn't move. The cub came within 3 meters, then stopped. Its eyes were yellow with black slits. They fixed on Tae-jin's face. Tae-jin slowly closed his eyes and turned his head slightly to the side. It was a gesture of non-aggression, something that worked with Earth predators. He didn't know if it meant anything to alien species, but it was worth trying. Minutes passed. The cub didn't attack. When Tae-jin opened his eyes again, the creature had sat down. It was still watching him, but the tension in its body had eased slightly. The other cubs had moved closer too, forming a loose circle around him. They kept their distance, but they were no longer hiding. Taejin sat with them for 2 hours. He didn't try to touch them. He didn't offer food. He just existed in their space, breathing, being present. When he finally stood to leave, none of the cubs tried to stop him. They watched him go with what Taejin hoped was curiosity instead of hunger. That evening, Minji found him in the station cafeteria. She was the medical officer, a woman with kind eyes and quick hands. She had treated dozens of species in her time on the station. "I saw the footage from today," she said, sitting across from him. "That was either very brave or very stupid." Taejin smiled tiredly. "Maybe both. The cubs didn't eat, but they also didn't hide when you were there. That's progress." Minji pushed a cup of tea toward him. "The staff is talking. Half of them think you're going to get killed. The other half thinks you might actually help these cubs." "What do you think?" Taejin asked. Minji was quiet for a moment. "I think you see something in them that the rest of us don't. I hope you're right." Taejin went back the next day, and the day after that. Each time the cubs came a little closer. Each time they seemed a little less afraid. But they still didn't eat and time was running out. On the third day, Taejin decided to try something different. He brought a small container of food with him. Nothing fancy, just standard nutrition pellets. He sat in his usual spot near the door and placed the container beside him. Then he waited. The cubs approached as they had before. The smallest one, a creature covered in feathers and equipped with 3 rows of teeth, came closest. It sniffed the air near the food container but didn't take anything. Taejin reached into the container and pulled out a pellet. He held it in his open palm, arm extended but not too far. The small cub tilted its head, studying him. The other cubs watched with sharp focus. That's when Taejin's allergies decided to betray him. The station's air recycling system kicked in, stirring up dust particles. His nose itched. He tried to hold it back, but it was impossible. Taejin sneezed. The sound echoed through the enclosure, sharp and sudden, loud enough to make Taejin wince. The food pellet fell from his hand and rolled across the floor. For a single heartbeat, everything stopped. All 6 cubs froze completely. Their bodies went rigid. Their eyes locked on Taejin. In the observation room above, Daejung's hand moved toward the force field controls, ready to extract Taejin at the first sign of attack. Taejin held his breath. He had just made a loud, unexpected noise in a room full of apex predators. Every instinct told him to run, but he forced himself to stay still. His heart hammered in his chest. The smallest cub, the one with feathers and 3 rows of teeth, tilted its head to one side. Its mouth opened slightly. Then it made a sound. Achoo! The noise came out wrong, filtered through an alien throat and different vocal cords, but it was unmistakably an attempt to copy Taejin's sneeze. The cub's head bobbed with the effort and its feathers ruffled. Taejin stared. The cub stared back. Then it made the sound again, softer this time. Achoo! The 6-legged cub with crystal teeth moved forward. It opened its mouth and tried the sound too. What came out was deeper, rougher, like rocks grinding together. Achoo! One by one, the other cubs began making their own versions of the sound. Each attempt was unique, shaped by different biology and vocal structures. Some were high-pitched and whistling. Others were deep rumbles. The largest cub, a creature that looked like it was made of living shadows, produced something that sounded like distant thunder wrapped around a sneeze. Taejin couldn't help it. He started laughing. The sound of his laughter made the cubs pause again. They watched him with intense focus, heads tilted at various angles. The smallest cub crept forward until it was less than a meter away. It reached out one clawed limb and gently, carefully touched Taejin's knee. The touch was light, almost hesitant. Taejin stopped laughing and stayed very still. The cub looked up at him with large, curious eyes. Then it made the sneeze sound again, quieter. Waiting. Taejin understood. The cub was trying to communicate. He cleared his throat and made a similar sound back, a soft achoo that wasn't a real sneeze. The cub's entire body relaxed. Its feathers settled flat against its body and it moved even closer, pressing against Taejin's side. Within minutes, all 6 cubs had gathered around him. They weren't threatening or aggressive. They were gentle, almost careful. The largest one lay down behind Taejin, providing a warm backrest. The 6-legged cub rested its head on Taejin's lap. The others arranged themselves in a protective circle. In the observation room, Daejung lowered his hand from the controls. He looked at Hana with wide eyes. What just happened? Hana shook her head slowly. She was watching the monitors with an expression of complete disbelief. I have no idea. Record everything. We need to review this. Taijin sat with the cubs for another hour. They made the sneeze sound occasionally, and each time Taijin responded with a similar noise. It became a pattern, a conversation of sorts. When he finally stood to leave, the cubs didn't try to stop him, but they watched him go with what looked like disappointment. As he walked through the door, the smallest cub made the sound one more time. Achoo! Taijin turned and repeated it back. The cub's tail wagged. The station erupted with activity after that. Scientists and staff members crowded around monitors reviewing footage of the incident. Everyone had theories, but no one had real answers. Taijin found himself in a conference room with Hana, Daejung, Minji, and 3 xenobiologists from other departments. It doesn't make sense, one of the scientists said. He was a middle-aged man named Dongwu who specialized in predator behavior. That sound should have triggered an attack response. Sudden loud noises are universally interpreted as threats by predator species. But it didn't, Minji pointed out. She had her tablet open, displaying biological readouts from the cubs. Look at their neural activity during the incident. Their threat assessment centers actually shut down. At the same time, their social bonding areas lit up like festival lights. Why? Daejung asked. What's special about a sneeze? I don't know yet, Minji admitted. But whatever it is, the cubs responded to it like it was significant. And when they started mimicking the sound, their stress levels dropped by 40%. Hana leaned forward. Has anyone checked if the cubs have eaten? There was a pause. Then Dongwu pulled up the feeding monitor data. His eyes widened. They ate. All of them. The food we left in the enclosure this morning is gone. The room went quiet. Taijin felt a wave of relief so strong it made him dizzy. The cubs were eating. They were going to survive. I want to run some tests, Minji said. With Taijin's permission, I'd like to analyze the acoustic properties of the sneeze. There might be something in the frequency or pattern that triggered the response. Do it, Hana said immediately. And Taijin, I need you to continue working with the cubs. Whatever you did, it worked. We need to understand why. Over the next week, Taijin spent hours each day with the cubs. They responded to him like he was part of their family. They brought him things. Rocks, pieces of torn fabric, even one of their toys. When he made the sneeze sound, they always responded with their own versions. It became their greeting, their way of saying everything was safe. Minji ran her tests and came back with interesting data. The frequency pattern of a human sneeze contained elements that matched juvenile distress calls in several predator species. It wasn't an exact match to any single species, but it had enough common features that young predators recognized it as something familiar. It's like your sneeze is speaking multiple languages at once, Minji explained to Taijin one evening. They were in her lab, surrounded by screens showing sound wave patterns. Each cub heard something different in it, something that reminded them of their own species' communication. But the universal element seems to be that it sounds like something small and vulnerable making noise. So they think I'm weak? Taijin asked with a slight smile. No, Minji said thoughtfully. I think they recognize the sound as coming from something young, something that needs protection. When they mimicked the sound, they were trying to bond with you the way they would bond with their own siblings or pack members. Taijin looked at the footage playing on one of the screens. It showed him sitting with the cubs, all of them making sneeze sounds at each other. It would have been funny if it wasn't so profound. Has anything like this happened before? He asked. Humans bonding with alien predators. Minji pulled up another file. That's the strange part. I started asking around, checking with other stations and research facilities. There are reports. Not many, but they exist. A human scientist working with aquatic predators on Rigel Station. She hiccuped during a feeding session, and the creature started bringing her prey as gifts. A human child on a frontier colony who wandered into a nest of territorial predators. They found her 3 days later completely unharmed with the pack guarding her. That's not normal, Taijin said. No, Minji agreed. It's not. I think there's something about humans that predator species respond to. Something in our sounds, our movements, maybe our biology. I'm going to submit a request to the Galactic Council. This needs more study. Taijin nodded, but his mind was already back in the enclosure with the cubs. They trusted him now. They felt safe with him. Whatever the science said, whatever the explanations were, that connection was real. The smallest cub had started sleeping next to the door of the enclosure. waiting for Tae-jin to arrive each morning. When he did, the cub would make the sneeze sound and Tae-jin would respond. It was their ritual now, their language. Tae-jin smiled. He had come to this station to study alien life. He hadn't expected to become family. 2 weeks after the sneeze incident, the Galactic Conservation Station received an unexpected visitor. Her name was Ji-won, and she was one of the Council's top ethologists. She arrived on a fast research vessel with a team of 3 assistants and enough monitoring equipment to fill 2 storage rooms. Tae-jin met her in the main hangar. She was younger than he expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes that seemed to analyze everything they saw. She shook his hand firmly. "I've been reading your reports," Ji-won said without preamble, "and Minji's analysis. What you've accomplished here shouldn't be possible, according to everything we know about apex predator behavior. I need to see it for myself." Tae-jin led her to the observation room. Below, the 6 cubs were playing. They wrestled with each other, chased floating toys, and occasionally paused to make the sneeze sound at the cameras. They had learned that Tae-jin watched from above sometimes, and they seemed to like performing for him. "They look healthy," Ji-won observed. "Happy, even. 3 weeks ago, these same cubs were considered unapproachable. How much time do you spend with them each day?" 4 to 6 hours, Tae-jin said. "Sometimes more. They get anxious if I'm gone too long." Ji-won made a note on her tablet. "I want to run a controlled test." "Is that acceptable?" "What kind of test?" "I want to monitor their neural activity while you interact with them. Specifically, I want to record what happens in their brains when you make that sound." The sneeze. Tae-jin nodded. "When?" "Now, if possible." They prepared quickly. Minji set up the neural scanners, small devices that could read brain activity through the enclosure walls. Ji-won positioned cameras at multiple angles. Dae-jung monitored from the security station just in case. Tae-jin entered the enclosure as he always did. The cubs rushed to greet him, making their versions of the sneeze sound. He responded to each one, and they pressed close, seeking contact. The smallest cub climbed into his lap. The largest one settled behind him like a living wall. "Whenever you're ready." Ji-won's voice came through the speakers. Tae-jin took a breath and made the sound. "Achoo." All 6 cubs responded immediately. Their heads turned toward him. Their bodies relaxed. They made the sound back. A chorus of strange sneezes filtered through alien biology. On the monitors, Ji-won watched the neural scans with growing amazement. "Incredible," she whispered. "Look at this. The moment he makes that sound, their threat response systems completely shut down. Fear, aggression, territorial instincts, all of it drops to near zero. At the same time, their social bonding centers activate strongly. It's the same pattern you'd see in juveniles responding to their own parents." Minji zoomed in on one of the scans. "It's even stronger than parent-juvenile bonding in some species. Look at the 6-legged cub. Its entire limbic system is reacting like Tae-jin is a primary attachment figure." In the enclosure, the 6-legged cub had placed its massive head on Tae-jin's shoulder. Its eyes were half closed, completely content. When Tae-jin scratched behind its ears, it made a deep rumbling sound that might have been purring. Ji-won ran the test 3 more times over the next hour, using different sounds for comparison. When Tae-jin coughed, the cub showed mild interest, but nothing more. When he spoke normally, they listened but didn't react strongly. But every time he made the sneeze sound, their response was immediate and powerful. "I need to analyze this data," Ji-won said after the tests were complete. "But I think I understand what's happening. Can we talk in the conference room?" An hour later, Ji-won presented her findings to the station's senior staff. Her presentation filled the main screen with graphs and charts. But she explained everything in clear terms. The human sneeze contains acoustic elements that overlap with juvenile distress calls across multiple predator species, she began. But it's more complex than that. The sound also includes frequencies found in contact calls, greeting calls, and submission signals. It's not that the sneeze matches any one specific call. It's that it contains enough universal markers that predator brains recognize it as socially significant. Hana leaned forward. "You're saying the cubs think the sneeze is a form of communication?" "Yes, but not in the way we normally think of communication. To the cubs, that sound registers as coming from something young, vulnerable, and non-threatening. When they hear it, their instinct is to respond protectively. When they mimic it, they're performing a bonding behavior that's common in social predators across the galaxy." Dongwu, The behavioral specialist frowned. But why would this work specifically with humans? Our vocal structure is different from most species. That's what makes this fascinating, Jiwon said. She pulled up a new chart. Humans produce dozens of involuntary sounds. Sneezes, coughs, hiccups, yawns, even laughter. These sounds are biological noise, things you can't easily control. And many of them contain frequency patterns that overlap with social calls in predator species. She brought up a comparison chart showing human sounds next to alien calls. The overlap was striking. It's coincidental, Jiwon continued. Humans didn't evolve to communicate with alien predators, but your biology just happens to produce sounds that these predators recognize as safe and socially relevant. Minji spoke up. I've been doing some research. This doesn't just happen at conservation stations. I found reports from frontier colonies and research vessels. Every time humans work closely with predator species, there are incidents of unexpected bonding. A human hiccuping near a hunting pack. A human yawning in front of a territorial guardian. Each time, the predators respond positively instead of aggressively. How many incidents? Hana asked. Minji pulled up her data. At least 30 documented cases across 12 different stations and colonies. And those are just the ones that were reported. I suspect there are many more. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Taejin thought about the cubs waiting in the enclosure below. They trusted him because of a sound he couldn't control. A biological quirk that somehow spoke a language predators understood. There's something else, Jiwon said quietly. She pulled up a final image. It showed a human child on a frontier colony, surrounded by 4 large predators. The predators were arranged in a protective circle around the child, who was laughing and playing with something on the ground. This image was taken on Hyun's colony world last year, Jiwon explained. The child wandered away from the settlement. Her parents found her 3 days later completely unharmed. The pack of predators had been guarding her, bringing her food and water. When the rescue team arrived, the predators were aggressive toward the adults but gentle with the child. What happened? Taejin asked. The team tried to figure out how the child survived. She said she hiccuped when she first saw the predators and they stopped chasing her. After that, they started taking care of her. Jiwon closed her presentation. Humans have a unique ability that we're just beginning to understand. You naturally produce sounds that register as non-threatening to predator species. More than that, these sounds trigger protective and bonding behaviors. This could change everything about how we approach conservation, rehabilitation, and interspecies relations. Hana stood. I'm sending a full report to the Galactic Council. This needs to be studied at the highest level. I agree, Jiwon said, but we need to be careful. This ability could be incredibly useful, but it could also be dangerous if misused. Predators that bond with humans are still predators. They're still capable of killing. We need protocols and training. Taejin thought about the smallest cub, the one that waited by the door every morning. He thought about the 6-legged cub that rested its head on his shoulder. They were deadly creatures, yes, but they were also individuals who needed connection and care. What happens now? He asked. Jiwon looked at him. Now you keep doing what you're doing. The cubs need you. And we need to learn everything we can from this situation. You might be the first, but you won't be the last human to form these bonds. That night, Taejin sat with the cubs in the enclosure. They were settled around him as usual, sleeping or resting quietly. The smallest cub was curled in his lap. The others were close enough to touch. Taejin made the sneeze sound softly. 5 of the cubs responded sleepily without opening their eyes. The 6th, the one with crystal teeth, opened one eye to look at him, then made the sound back before settling into sleep again. It was such a small thing, this sound, just air and vocal cords in biology. But it meant everything to these cubs. It meant safety. It meant family. Taejin closed his eyes and smiled. The galaxy was bigger and stranger than he had ever imagined, and somehow humans fit into it in ways no one had expected. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It could hold representatives from 200 different species, all seated in sections designed for their specific biology. Today, almost every seat was filled. Word had spread about the human phenomenon with predator species, and everyone wanted to hear the official presentation. Hana stood at the center podium with Taejin beside her. Behind them, massive screens displayed footage of the cubs responding to human sounds. The council members watched in silence as Taejin made the sneeze sound and the cubs gathered around him protectively. The evidence is clear. Hana said. Her voice carried through the chamber. Humans possess an unintentional ability to communicate with predator species across the galaxy. This ability is not learned or trained. It is a biological coincidence that produces extraordinary results. A council member from the VRIX delegation raised a tentacle. You claim this is not intentional, but how can we be certain humans are not manipulating these predators for their own purposes? Before Hana could answer, Taejin stepped forward. May I respond? Hana nodded. Taejin looked up at the assembled council members, feeling very small in the huge chamber. I didn't know I could do this, he said simply. I sneezed because of dust in the air. I had no control over it. The cubs responded on their own. Everything that happened after that was natural behavior from both sides. I'm not manipulating them. We're just learning to exist together. Another council member spoke, this one from a species that looked like living crystal. We have reviewed similar reports from other locations. A human named Kyung on the frontier colonies has been living peacefully with predator packs for 6 months. How do you explain this? A new voice rang out from the entrance. I can explain it, everyone turned. A man walked down the center aisle toward the podium. He was in his 50s with gray hair and the confident walk of someone who had spent years in research facilities. His name was Sang-woo, and he was one of Earth's top evolutionary biologists. Council members, Sang-woo said, bowing slightly. I apologize for my late arrival, but I have information that's relevant to this discussion. Hana gestured for him to join them at the podium. Sang-woo pulled up his own presentation on the screens. I've been studying humanity's relationship with predators for 30 years, he began. Not alien predators, Earth predators. And what I've found is that humans are unique among intelligent species in one specific way. We don't just coexist with apex predators. We invite them into our homes. The screen showed images from Earth. Dogs sleeping in human beds. Cats curled up on laps, a human child hugging a wolf. Humans domesticated wolves tens of thousands of years ago, Sang-woo continued. We turned apex predators into companions. But we didn't stop there. Throughout human history, we've raised bear cubs, swum with sharks, kept venomous snakes as pets, and formed bonds with predators that should logically kill us. He pulled up more images. A human swimming with a great white shark, another human bottle feeding a tiger cub, a third human letting a wild wolf pack check her for injuries. This behavior is not normal for an intelligent species, Sang-woo said. Most species avoid predators. They develop weapons to fight them or technology to hide from them. But humans seek them out. We want to understand them. We want to connect with them. And somehow we've evolved the ability to do exactly that. A council member from the Tharix delegation stood. You're suggesting humans are genetically designed to bond with predators? Not designed, Sang-woo corrected. Coincidentally equipped. Humans produce many involuntary sounds. These sounds evolved for various reasons on Earth. Sneezes to clear airways, coughs to expel irritants, hiccups from diaphragm spasms. They're just biological noise. But that noise happens to overlap with social calls in predator species across the galaxy. He brought up Ji-won's frequency charts, the ones showing the overlap between human sounds and predator communication. It's like humans are accidentally speaking dozens of languages we never knew existed, Sang-woo said. And predators understand us because our sounds trigger their social bonding instincts. The chamber erupted in discussion. Council members spoke among themselves in various languages. Some seemed excited, others looked concerned. A few appeared skeptical. Hana raised her hand for silence. The question before the council is simple. Should we create a formal program to deploy humans in conservation and rehabilitation efforts galaxy-wide? The benefits could be enormous. But there are also risks. What risks? Asked a council member from a species with multiple eyes and a beak-like mouth. Ji-won stood. She had been sitting in the audience but now came forward. The risk is that humans will forget these are still dangerous creatures. Bonding doesn't mean control. A predator that trusts you can still hurt you, especially if it feels threatened or if it's protecting you from perceived danger. We've already had 3 incidents where humans were injured by predators they had bonded with. Were the injuries serious? The council member asked. One required surgery. The other 2 were minor. But the point stands. These creatures are powerful and potentially lethal. If we create a program, we need strict guidelines and extensive training. Taejin spoke up again. I work with the cubs every day. They trust me and I trust them. But I never forget what they are. That respect has to go both ways. We protect them and they protect us, but we also give each other space. The council debated for 2 hours. Arguments flew back and forth. Some members worried that humans would abuse this ability. Others argued that conservation efforts desperately needed this kind of breakthrough. Species were dying across the galaxy because rehabilitation programs weren't working. Finally, the head of the council, an ancient being from a species that looked like floating lights, called for order. "We will vote," the being said. Its voice sounded like music. All in favor of creating the Human Integration Initiative for Predator Conservation and Rehabilitation. Lights appeared throughout the chamber as council members registered their votes. Tajin held his breath. This would determine not just his future, but the future of every predator that needed help and every human who wanted to provide it. The vote counter appeared on the main screen. 217 in favor, 43 against, 12 abstaining. The initiative passed. Hana closed her eyes briefly in relief. Sang-woo smiled. Ji-won nodded, already thinking about protocols and training programs. And Tae-jin thought about the 6 cubs waiting back at the station, wondered if they missed him. After the vote, several council members approached the human delegation. They wanted to discuss specifics, ask questions, understand the details. Kyung, the frontier colony pilot, had been called to attend, and she shared her experiences living among predator packs. "They're not pets," Kyung said firmly when one council member suggested as much. "They're partners. We help each other survive. I don't own them any more than they own me. We're just family now." That word kept coming up. Family. It was the best way to describe what happened when humans and predators bonded. Not ownership, not control, just connection. Late that night, Tae-jin returned to the station. It was past midnight and he was exhausted from the travel and the council session. But he went straight to the enclosure. The cubs were sleeping, arranged in a pile in the center of the space. But the smallest one lifted its head when Tae-jin entered. It made the sneeze sound softly, questioning. Tae-jin made the sound back. "Achoo, I'm home." The cub got up carefully, trying not to wake the others. It padded over to Tae-jin and pressed against his legs. He sat down and it climbed into his lap, curling up like it always did. The other cubs stirred. One by one, they woke and came to greet him. Soon he was surrounded by them, and they were all making quiet sneeze sounds, checking on him, making sure he was okay. "I'm fine," Tae-jin whispered. "I was at the council. They approved the program. We're going to help more predators like you. More humans are going to learn what I learned, that you're not monsters. You're just scared sometimes, and you need family just like everyone else." The 6-legged cub with crystal teeth rested its head on Tae-jin's shoulder. The largest one settled behind him. The others arranged themselves close, creating a protective circle. Tae-jin sat with them in the quiet darkness of the enclosure, feeling their warmth and weight around him. The galaxy had just changed in a fundamental way. Humans had found a place in it that no one expected, not as warriors or diplomats or traders, but as speakers of an accidental language that predators understood. He made the sneeze sound one more time. All 6 cubs responded, their voices mixing together in a strange chorus. It was the sound of family, the sound of trust, the sound of a future where humans and predators could exist together, not in fear but in understanding. 6 months after the council vote, Tae-jin stood in his new office and looked out at the stars. His title now was Director of the Interspecies Integration Program, which sounded impressive, but mostly meant he spent his days coordinating between dozens of stations and training new human specialists. It was exhausting work. It was also the most meaningful thing he had ever done. The program had grown faster than anyone expected. 47 humans were now working at conservation stations across the galaxy. Another 20 were in training. Applications came in daily from people who wanted to work with alien predators. Some were scientists like Tae-jin. Others were farmers, teachers, artists, people from every background imaginable. They all had one thing in common. They understood that predators were not enemies, just different kinds of family. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. Minji entered, carrying a tablet and wearing the satisfied expression of someone with good news. "The Rigel station numbers just came in," she said. "The aquatic predators have been successfully rehabilitated. All 12 of them. The human specialist there, a woman named Yoonji, used the same techniques you developed. Soft sounds, patient presence, and time. Any injuries? Taejin asked. That was always his first question. One minor bite during feeding, but Yoonji says it was her fault. She moved too quickly and startled the predator. It was defensive, not aggressive. She's fine now. Taejin nodded. Injuries happened. They had strict protocols now for handling them, and every specialist understood the risks. The important thing was that the predators were thriving. How's Hana? Minji asked. I heard her station got 3 new cubs last week. Stressed but happy, Taejin said with a smile. She's training 2 new specialists, and apparently the cubs have bonded with both of them. One of the specialists hiccuped during the first session, and the cubs responded just like ours did. It really does work with all human sounds, Minji said wonderingly. I'm still analyzing the data, but I've confirmed it now. Sneezes, hiccups, yawns, coughs, even laughter. They all contain frequencies that predators recognize as socially significant. What about the military program? Taejin asked. Minji's expression grew more serious. That's the complicated part. Daejung is running it, and he's being very careful. The military wants to use predators for security and patrol duties, which makes sense. But there are ethical concerns. We're not creating weapons, Taejin said firmly. That was my condition when I agreed to help. Daejung understands that. He's focusing on partnership models. Humans and predators working together, not predators taking orders. It's slow progress, but it's the right approach. Taejin's communicator buzzed. He checked the message and smiled. Jiwon says the new training facility is ready. She wants me to come review the curriculum. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning. Want to come? You could check on the medical protocols, Minji nodded. I'll pack tonight. After she left, Taejin sat down at his desk and pulled up the latest reports from stations across the galaxy. The numbers told an incredible story. Predator rehabilitation rates had increased by 80% in the past 6 months. Attacks on humans by bonded predators were rare, and almost always the result of human error or miscommunication. Species that were previously considered impossible to work with were now thriving in integrated programs. But there were problems too. 3 specialists had been removed from the program for abusing their relationships with predators, treating them as pets or toys instead of partners. One station had a serious incident when a predator became too protective of its human companion and attacked another staff member. And there were reports of predators becoming dependent on human contact, refusing to return to the wild even after rehabilitation was complete. Every new technology had problems. Every breakthrough came with challenges. The important thing was learning from mistakes and improving. Taejin's thoughts were interrupted by a video call from Kyung. Her face appeared on his screen, and behind her he could see the landscape of her frontier colony. 3 large predators were visible in the background, resting in the shade. Director? Kyung said with a teasing smile. Fancy title for a guy who sneezes at aliens. Taejin laughed. How's the colony? Growing. We got 5 new families last month. All of them want to live here because they heard we coexist with the predators. The packs have been amazing about it. They investigate the new people, do their checking, and then accept them if they pass. What does passing mean? Mostly just not being aggressive or afraid. The predators can tell when someone is comfortable around them. Oh, and it helps if you hiccup or sneeze in front of them. One of the new colonists, a guy named Jun, sneezed during his first day here. 3 predators immediately adopted him. How is he handling it? He loves it. He grew up on a farm on Earth, worked with animals his whole life. Now he's got 3 alien predators that follow him around and help protect his crops. Taejin shook his head in amazement. This is all happening so fast. It is, Kyung agreed. But it's good, Taejin. Really good. These predators needed us and we needed them. The galaxy is becoming a better place because of what you started. After the call ended, Taejin walked down to the station's main enclosure. His 6 original cubs were there, but they weren't cubs anymore. They had grown into full adults, magnificent and powerful. They could have been released months ago, but Taejin had requested to keep them at the station. They were teachers now, helping new specialists learn how to work with predators. The smallest one, the feathered predator that had been first to respond to his sneeze, was currently demonstrating bonding behavior for a young specialist named Borum. The predator made the sneeze sound, and Borum responded nervously. The predator moved closer and gently nudged her hand. Don't force it, Taejin called out. Just let the moment happen. Borum nodded. She took a breath, relaxed, and made the sneeze sound again, more naturally this time. The predator's entire body language changed. It pressed against her side and Borum reached up to touch its feathers. Both of them made the sound together, creating a moment of connection. Tae-jin watched with satisfaction. This was what the program was about. Not control or domination, but understanding and respect. That evening, he received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted to expand the program to include non-predator species. There were reports that human sounds were having positive effects on other types of aliens too, species that were traditionally shy or difficult to study. The Council wanted to investigate whether humans could serve as universal communicators across the galaxy. Tae-jin read the message twice, then forwarded it to Ji-won and Sang-woo with a note. Thoughts? Ji-won responded first, "Let's be careful. We're still learning about predators. Adding more species could complicate things." Sang-woo's response came, "A fee could be huge. Humans as galactic diplomats through accidental biology?" "Yes, please." Tae-jin smiled and closed his communicator. That was a decision for another day. He walked back to the enclosure one last time before heading to his quarters. The 6 predators were settling down for the night, arranged in their usual pile. When they saw him, they all made the sneeze sound in greeting. Tae-jin made the sound back. "Achoo. Good night, family." The largest predator, the one made of living shadows, separated from the group and came to the edge of the enclosure. It looked at Tae-jin with its strange glowing eyes. Then it made a new sound, something Tae-jin had never heard before. It was soft and musical, almost like singing. Tae-jin stood very still. The predator made the sound again, and this time the other 5 joined in. It was beautiful and alien and completely new. "What is that?" Tae-jin whispered. He pulled out his communicator and recorded the sound, then sent it to Minji with a question mark. Her response came back quickly. "That's incredible. I think they're creating a new call. Something king anymore. They're communicating." Tae-jin looked at the predators through the enclosure wall. They had stopped making the sound and were watching him, waiting. He tried to replicate what he had heard. It came out wrong, filtered through human vocal cords, but he did his best. The predators made the sound again, softer this time, encouraging. They worked together for several minutes, Tae-jin learning their new call and them adjusting it so he could manage it. Finally, they found a version that worked for both species. It wasn't a sneeze anymore. It was something entirely new, a sound that belonged to this specific family of humans and predators. When Tae-jin finally left for the night, he couldn't stop smiling. The program had started with an accidental sneeze, but it was becoming something much bigger. Humans weren't just mimicking predator calls anymore. They were creating new languages together, building bridges across biology and evolution. He thought about all the humans working at stations across the galaxy, forming bonds with creatures that most species feared. He thought about Kyung living peacefully with her pack on the frontier. He thought about Borum making her first real connection with a predator today. And he thought about the future, when human children would grow up with alien companions, when predators would be partners instead of threats. The galaxy was vast and strange and full of danger, but it was also full of possibility, and humans had found their place in it, not through strength or technology, but through something as simple as a sen.